Hello and welcome to the 14th ever episode of the Unsigned Manager Podcast. My name is Siji Kolawole, and each week I take a look at football's key headlines, stories and events from both the past and the present, so I can take a deeper look at them and see what's really happened. As you guys know, I'm 21 years old, I'm a big football nerd, and one day I'm going to be able to call myself a football historian. In the process of going back and learning about the game, there's a player who just keeps cropping up in fun teams, record books, goal compilations, everything you see he's there. So then I did a little bit more research into him and discovered a gem of a player whose legacy hasn't really translated into this era, so I made to bring it back. On this week's podcast, I want to take an in-depth look at Dutch legend Clarence Seedorf. So let's get into the episode. The best thing about football media is that we're all watching the game at the same time. So you feel like a larger community of people are just like you. It's comforting to see online that the player you thought would be a great talent, a lot of other people actually like him too, and now you can all share opinions and thoughts. It's amazing. When your team does something great and you can have that celebration alongside other people, that's probably what kept most of us football fans going during the pandemic. Online football media has become a really positive force for the game, but oh my days are some things annoying. Yeah, it's nice when you can have an individual thought and someone else has an individual thought and you actually get to the same conclusion, but how many people do you see just copy other influential people's thoughts in the game? I think if you make a stan account for a club, you're a weirdo, and when people defend their club or their players without any context or logic, doesn't matter what's happening, that's bewildering to me. I saw a Chelsea account the other day. I don't even know why I let them get on my nerves so much. I saw one of them the other day say that Mason Mount this season was better than any season David Silva has ever had. How can you even allow yourself to say that? Not every player hits different. Not every player is scary. Oh my days. But by far, the worst thing about internet football culture is the endless over-sensationalism of every player. No, just because your team's left winger dribbled past 3 people doesn't make him clear of Raheem Sterling. No, just because your centre-back had a great game doesn't mean that Ruben Dias wasn't worth his signing and that Manchester City just overpaid for everyone. Trust me, I am going somewhere with this, don't worry. It's not that black and white. It's not that binary. It's not that simple. Without being objective, we make it hard to really judge the levels of the game. The levels between some players and their impact are crowded, and at this point we're just going to run out of adjectives. John McGinn for Aston Villa, good player. So is Mateo Kovacic for Chelsea, good player. So is Gini Wijnaldum. But they're not complete players. They're good players who are good at many different areas, but they aren't complete. They can't do every area of their position to a world-class level. That's a complete player. And if that sounds harsh, it should be. There are barely any complete players right now in the world. That's the point. Just because you have a midfielder who can do a little bit of defending, a little bit of goal scoring, a little bit of attacking, a little bit of dribbling, he's not Ruud Gullit. You can't do everything. But everyone just tars every player with the same brush and you think they're all on the same level, and now you actually find it hard to judge between people. This is where I'm going with this. If everyone is a complete player, then no one is. And in every sense of the word, Clarence Seedorf is a complete player. No holes in his technique, no holes in his physicality, no holes in his football brain. He is a complete player, probably the ultimate complete player. You can't say every player is complete and then have levels to complete. That's not really how that works. But like I always say, I want to take a look at Seedorf this episode, the ultimate complete player. So let's go back and see where someone of his level started out. Born in Suriname in South America, Seedorf and his family moved to the Netherlands as an immigrant when he was a young child. And Suriname is a country that isn't very famous, not many people have heard of it, but has been the homeland to many top stars, like randomly. Frank Rijkaard, Ruud Gullit, Edgar Davids, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank and others. I don't know what that country is producing, but everyone needs to take a look. Clarence came from a big football family, talented players all around him. His younger brothers Jurgen and Cedric, along with his father Johan, were all talented players, all professional, and his dad was also a well-known football agent. And if you're born with the talent of a Seedorf, you're spotted pretty early. Amateur clubs came clamouring for Clarence, and it wasn't long until Amsterdam's big boys came looking for him. An agency called Urgent Scouting Team, set up by podcast host Johan Cruyff, discovered Seedorf and sent him on his way to the Ajax Academy. By the way, Urgent Scouting are the same people who recruited the De Boer brothers, Edgar David and Patrick Kluivert, so not a bad group of players there. He's one of those players who helped put the Ajax Academy on the map. His class was crazy. That year group was a joke. Really talented player, both physically and technically at the time. Apparently, he was physically overdeveloped. They were like, for a teenager, Seedorf has the strength of a man. They always say he was a crazy athlete, but compared to his year group at the time when he was younger, it was almost unfair. He's strong, fast, agile, but then he had good balance and a good engine, no holes. Then on the ball, he could dribble exceptionally, create in the final third, and finish chances. He didn't have the complete ability yet. He couldn't do everything, couldn't dictate from the centre of the park, but his attacking instincts were already developed. He started out as a right winger in Amsterdam at only 16 years old. He's playing in the top division of Dutch football before he'd finished his GCSEs and was productively changing games. 16 years old, making Ajax debut. Probably the most exceptional thing about Seedorf at the time, he could fill, and did fill, literally every position on the pitch. Clarence Seedorf is 5'9", but he could play centre-back, full-back, every midfield position, both wings, and has filled in at a 9. At 16, he fully established himself in the flourishing Ajax team, managed by legendary manager Louis van Gaal. So Van Gaal became Ajax manager and immediately put a big emphasis on playing youth players and creating a young, vibrant, technical team. They essentially followed the style of that man again, Johan Cruyff, using a 3-4-3 to encourage positional rotation and really suffocate the opposition. Van Gaal's teams are so systematically tight, so well drilled, and then if they're athletic and young, they will swarm all over the pitch. And if you're the opposition team, you can't get out. There's no way to get through. And it must have worked because that 93-94 season ended with a treble. League, Dutch Cup and Dutch Super Cup. And then life would get even better in Holland, with Seedorf and Ajax repeating their league and Super League successes as well as making it to a Champions League final. Seedorf was a really big part of this season for Ajax, playing 48 games that year and becoming a force in the side. That 94-95 team managed to go unbeaten in the league and then win the European Cup with an average squad age of 23, which is just testament to how young and talented this team is. In the Champions League final, Seedorf filled in at right central midfield. I don't even know how Van Gaal managed to fit all his talent into one side. This Ajax team had Edwin van der Sar, the De Boer brothers, Frank Rijkaard, who was Seedorf's idol as a kid, and apparently he was so overwhelmed to be playing with him. It took him a couple of weeks to calm down. Edgar David, Jari Litmanen, Mark Overmars, Finidi George, Patrick Kluivert, and Nwankwo Kanu, all in the same team. Kluivert cleaned up a second half chance to secure a fourth Champions League for Ajax, and Seedorf had become a European champion at 18. He was particularly close with David and Kluivert, which would come on to be a major story at Euro 96, but I'm going to do that era's Dutch team in a whole different episode, so I'm not going to cover the national team in this one, but goodness, that's a story over there. Even after winning the European Cup though, Seedorf had decided not to extend his contract at Ajax and test himself in a new league, signing a 1-year contract with Italian team Sampdoria. Seedorf actually moved to Sampdoria because of the brand new Bosman rule, shout out to Mark Bosman, which allowed players to move for free after their contract had expired at their previous club. He met a good squad at Sampdoria containing Christian Karamba, Enrico Chiesa, Federico Chiesa's dad, the guy who just ran right at the Euros, and Roberto Mancini. The aim of that side was to remain competitive, which they did, finishing in the top half of the league on the back of outstanding performances by Karamba and Seedorf. Now, this is when a real talented player was emerging. Trying to think of a modern do-it-all action midfielder in comparison to Seedorf is kind of hard. No one today has the blend of everything that he did. I think the best case I could think of is Moussa Dembele at Tottenham, the Belgian midfielder, if he was more polished. Physically and technically, Dembele is not far off it. Seedorf's a bit more gifted going forward and could dominate the middle of the park better, but they had that similar style, big, you can't knock them off the ball, great athletes, great engine. Football brain was there, but Seedorf's a bit more developed than that. Or if you wanted to go more physical, Modric. If Modric could defend a bit better, it's hard to find a comparison. Seedorf played as a number 8 in Italy when he was at Sampdoria, as part of a 4-man midfield, which really allowed him to show all his exceptional physical and technical skills, both winning the ball back for his team and then driving forward and creating opportunity for his forwards. He could do that. He could dribble so well and had good vision. You know when Ndombele picks up the... Well, shout out to Tottenham. You know when Ndombele picks up the ball and just starts going, and then he beats one man, beats a second, beats a third, and now he's driving into the final third and his run is going on. That is peak Seedorf. That's what he's looking at. He was only at Sampdoria for a year because he was so impressive that season that even though the club finished 8th, Fabio Capello came up to him in a car park with Christian Karamba and said, "Would you like to join me at Real Madrid?" And you'd have to be a madman to say no to that. Funnily enough, it was actually the second time Madrid had wanted to sign Seedorf, first pursuing him at 14, but his parents didn't sanction the move because they wanted him to finish his education first in Holland. But this move was going through, and Seedorf made sure he exploded at Real. He was only 21 years old when he signed for Madrid in '96, but boy was he good. First, he had the best ability in the game, availability, because his physique and his fitness and dedication to himself meant he was always in good condition. He was never injured. He played 159 games in 2.5 seasons at Madrid, which averages to about 60 games a year. In the season before he joined, that 95-96 year, Madrid were an absolute mess, diabolical, finishing in their lowest position in the league since the mid-70s, and they were getting worked over by Johan Cruyff's Barcelona, another Cruyff bingo. So with a new manager in Capello, a big transfer market that brought in Predrag Mijatovic, Davor Šuker, Roberto Carlos, Z Roberto, and of course Clarence Seedorf, Madrid shot their way back up to the top of La Liga, bringing the title back to the Spanish capital. In a similar style that he played at Samp and Ajax, Seedorf used his football brain and technical ability to roll through midfields, either punishing weaker players physically and breezing past them, or nipping around bigger ones with his pace and agility and balance. Capello used him as a free 8 or number 10 behind 2 9s, so his attacking flair and progressive passing was all good use. If you're a front 2, all you want is a number 10 behind you who can draw defenders in and then play the killer pass, and that's Seedorf to a T. He could score too, don't worry about that. He could put the ball in the net. I'll put the link in the video. The 97 goal against Atletico Madrid is probably a goal you've seen loads of times in compilations, but you don't know who it is because the footage isn't great. Seedorf basically gets the ball about 10 yards into the halfway line and decides, have it, and puts it right in the top corner from what could probably be 60 yards. I don't even know how someone can hit a ball that hard, let alone put it in the top corner from there. It's absolutely filthy. He could pass, defend, dribble, create, read the game all to an outstanding level. That's a complete player. So when I go back, like I was saying earlier, John McGinn, good player. You can't do all those things to a top level. Kovacic, good player. Can't do all those things to a top level. Wijnaldum, the same. Seedorf is what you're looking at as a complete player. I don't even know who I would class as a complete player in the game today. I don't mean that there aren't many world-class players. I mean that you can do everything on a pitch. This is a number 10 who can play centre-back. Different level. He'd put in top seasons as a teenager. Multiple consecutive top-level seasons. And in his early 20s, he's competing for big, big trophies. Speaking of that, he went from being a major part of a league-winning side in Madrid in 97 to being a major part of a Champions League winning side in 98. He had 2 Champions League medals now as a key member of a team, not some fringe guy, before 22. In that year's final, Real Madrid beat Juventus, and it was an interesting but cagey game. I don't know if any of you guys are going to remember this. I don't know if anyone's seen this. Real Madrid used to have their own TV channel, like the same way MUFC or the Chelsea channel. It was all Real Madrid, where they'd only show old games or highlights, or it's kind of like match of the day for Real Madrid, but 24/7. And I remember there was one Saturday morning, I must have been like 9 or 10, where they played the 97 Champions League final. I must have been about 10 because Ronaldo had just joined, which would have been 2000. Yeah, that makes sense. I must have been about 10 years old. And even at that age, not with a sharp football brain, barely really knew what was going on. You could see that the 2 guys in the middle of the park, they were having a mad one. Madrid has Seedorf and Juve has Edgar Davids. Now, these 2 guys like the best of friends and former teammates, but oh my days, physicality in that one is something else. And they're really similar players, so they read each other well. So everything's a battle. You can't go anywhere without the other one reading where you're going. You can't turn without the other guy being in your face. I rewatched it when I got older just to check out what was happening. Really interesting game. Go and check that out. That game's on the internet, definitely. And there's a bit of a pre-context game before the Galacticos. This is a Madrid team that's well drilled rather than full of star talent, even though they were. It wasn't just superstar names all bunched together. Seedorf has said after he's retired that of all the Champions Leagues he won, all the medals he won, all the individual trophies, that Champions League was his favourite because that one was the hardest one to work for. The other ones made sense to him because he felt like he had the best team or the squad around him was just too good not to win. But that year Madrid was down to hard work and togetherness, and they didn't do well in the league that year. So the whole team rallied around the European Cup and in the end it worked out. But anyway, Seedorf is a world-beating player at this point, and he stayed at Madrid for another season after the Champions League win. But by this point, Fabio Capello had left, who was replaced by Jupp Heynckes, who was then replaced by Guus Hiddink. Real Madrid actually tried to swap Seedorf to Juventus for Zidane, but it didn't work out. Juventus didn't want to give Zidane up, and then Hiddink marginalised Seedorf, and then he had beef with the president, Lorenzo Sanz, and in the end, the Real Madrid dream was over. He'd won a league title and a Champions League as a star player, but he needed to make a move to keep his career going because Madrid were ready to stifle him. Unfortunately, probably the only mistake he made in his career, Seedorf decided the move was Inter Milan. During the winter transfer window between 1999 and 2000, he sold to Inter for approximately 23 million euros. Just running through the list of teams this guy's played for at this point: Ajax, Sampdoria, Real Madrid and Inter Milan, all before 23. This is his level. Multiple big teams don't come knocking for players like that unless they're an unreal talent. Actually, funnily enough, I think the same thing about Alvaro Morata. Morata's a baller, top player. His issue is more mental fragility but lacking technique, but baller. Anyway, side story. Seedorf never had those issues like Morata, but Inter just didn't work out for him. Bad move. He made the move because famous Italian manager Marcello Lippi called him and said that he would be playing as a number 10 behind R9 and Christian Vieri if he joined Inter. And if you're a creative midfield player and someone says you can play behind those two, you jump at the call. But as it can happen in football, the person that brings you to the house party might not be the person that you dance with. Lippi was sacked within a year, and the new managers Marco Tardelli and Hector Cooper just didn't have any need for a 10. Their system didn't want one, and Seedorf was left on the side. He said it was one of the hardest times of his career because not playing for 2 years straight at Inter after being the star man in his former teams was a big change. He also said that that's when he learnt the value of being a good teammate and being dedicated to the sport. He ensured that he stayed in shape, that he was constantly ready to play if the team needed. That's a credit to his professionalism. A lot of players nowadays probably couldn't do that. No disrespect to them, but if you're known as being the man, 2-time Champions League winner, you're not going to go sit at the bench at some club. His period in exile was over because noisy neighbours AC Milan came knocking on the door and asked him if he wanted to join the club. Adding another legacy-filled team onto his CV, Seedorf was recruited by Carlo Ancelotti to come and join a midfield that had Andrea Pirlo, Gennaro Gattuso and Massimo Ambrosini in the middle. Imagine being the opposition defensive midfield player. That three-man midfield of Pirlo, Gattuso and Seedorf was the perfect balance. Gattuso's rugged, supreme defensive midfielder, powerful, tough, can't get through him. He is the perfect man to put next to an Andrea Pirlo, the ultimate technician, vision times 10, could find space in a post box. Then you slot a complete midfielder in that final spot. Seedorf, who could pass, dribble, create, control, could fill in the gaps of any team. Milan had found their perfect piece. Post-retirement, Seedorf has said that Andrea Pirlo was the best player he ever played with, and he has played with some serious candidates because his vision and his football awareness was far ahead of anyone else's. He said on the pitch they didn't even talk that much. Facial expressions and reading body language allowed them to understand each other's needs and go where the other one needed him to go and make space, and apparently it was perfect harmony. His first season at AC Milan isn't too bad, to be honest. He didn't do much really, only became the first player in football history to win 3 Champions Leagues with 3 different clubs, especially as a key player in each squad. Before Ballon d'Or winner Ricardo Kaká joined the Rossoneri, Portuguese creative midfield player Rui Costa was a spearhead of the AC Milan midfield, with Pirlo, Gattuso and Seedorf forming the rest of the diamond. Now, I've got to tell the truth, to be honest, the Champions League final is pretty pedestrian. It's not great viewing. But it's capped off by a penalty shootout where Andrei Shevchenko scores the winner as Milan squeeze past rivals Juventus at Old Trafford to win another Champions League. Paolo Maldini wins man of the match, but Seedorf is the man at the moment. He's stolen the show, he's crowned Mr. Champions League. Becoming the first man to win a Champions League at 3 different clubs really got to him. And in his post-match interview, he can't even speak. He's so overwhelmed, he's choking up. He was now undisputably a European football legend, a football giant, and it wasn't even his final Champions League. He does it again, 2007 with AC Milan again. They've avenged the horrendous Istanbul loss. For all the Liverpool fans out there, don't worry, I will be doing Istanbul. That's just going to be his own separate thing. But they got revenge in that game. They beat Liverpool in the Olympic Stadium to make Seedorf a 4-time Champions League winner. AC had replaced an aging Rui Costa with Brazilian superstar Ricardo Kaká, probably get his own episode as well. And he took over the bulk of the creative duties in the team with Seedorf and Pirlo supporting him through progressive passing and long distance shooting, while Gattuso picked up the bulk of the defensive work. Ancelotti had managed to get the best of these 3, and that is a serious diamond. And being complemented by players like that, in a system like that, Seedorf's talent was on full display. He was voted the Champions League's best midfielder that year, but that's a given when you win your 4th trophy. And he's in an illustrious group of players to have won 4 Champions Leagues, joining Iniesta, Xavi, Messi, Toni Kroos, but he's the only guy to win 3 at 3 different clubs. He also became the highest non-Italian appearance maker for AC Milan in his career. He played 395 games for them in 10 years. Averaged that out at just under 400 games in 10 years, 40 games a season. Seedorf's not an injured person. And I think that's what made him so useful to clubs, is that you knew that you were getting his level of performance every week, every game for an entire season. He won his 2nd title with the club in 2010-11, but at this point age is catching up. And in 2012, Seedorf announced he'd be leaving Milan to progress his career in Brazil. UEFA actually did a ranking like the year before it was like a commemoration for the Champions League, and they ranked the 20 best players to ever play in the Champions League, and Seedorf got ranked number 7, and that's not a bad shout. He'd won 2 league titles, 2 Champions Leagues, a Coppa Italia in 10 years at Milan, but he was ready for a change. This has been the bulk of his career. He's aging, he just needs a move. AC Milan CEO Adriano Galliani spoke of Seedorf when he was leaving, saying that when Milan played well, which happened often, each and every time it occurred because Seedorf played an amazing game. He is a world-class player. He was 36 years old and he decided to sign for Brazilian team Botafogo in 2012. He just wanted it. I can imagine after all those European Cup wins and the heavy minutes he played in his career, he probably just wanted a break, have fun, do skills, shoot from 40 yards, which he did, score loads of free kicks, which he did. He steered the Brazilian club to 2 league titles before announcing his retirement in 2014 to become a manager and take control of Milan, and since then he's just been looking for managerial jobs and doing 1-year stints. Seedorf retired in 2014 and his European football career was done in 2012, so we're looking at 10 years now, and this is a guy who's not really spoken about that much. Compared to like a Ronaldinho or a Zidane or players like that, he's not really talked about like he was that guy. He started to do more charity work and work on racial things and fix problems, and he was really close with Mandela before he died, but let's not forget that Clarence Seedorf was the man. This is a guy that any team would have wanted them in their midfield. But it feels like he's not crossed eras. He hasn't crossed into this generation as well as he did the last one. And I wonder why that is. I wonder maybe it's just because midfielders, especially like number 8s, aren't as fun. Like he could score goals, but he wasn't a Frank Lampard who might get 20 a season, or Gerrard did his in the Prem, so maybe he's more recognised, but Seedorf is a baller. And any of the players of that era, all of them say that this guy was a problem to play against. I wonder why he hasn't crossed over, but that's why I like doing podcasts like this and bringing up players that you might know of but don't know of. Or you might have seen a compilation of but you don't realise his levels, because it took me a while too. I think I was like 12 or 13 when I realised this guy was the man. I was like, what's happening here? But Seedorf is a very, very talented player, and if you don't know, get to know. Go do the research. Doing old school football research will pay out. I'm telling you, you will appreciate it. Go and check out them games. The 97 Champions League finals. Even if you want to just do compilations, go and check out Clarence Seedorf comps. Probably at Sampdoria onwards would be the easiest footage for you to get. He's a special player. And speaking of special players, I don't know what on earth football's been on this week. Some of the transfers, this whole game is on steroids. Grealish goes for British record. Danny Ings in the middle of the night decides to sign for Aston Villa. Leon Bailey signs for Villa, are looking like they want to make a title run. Then you think it's a bit mad, okay. Lukaku might be going to Chelsea. What that front guy going to look like? Manchester United, all the business they've done. Varane, Sancho, PSG, signing a world-class level. And then Messi decides to leave. And now every decision that every club has made, they would all take it back to have the funds to pay his wages. I'm going to do a full breakdown of everything. Next week's episode is going to be a madness. It's going to do all the transfers wrapped up so far. Season preview, predictions. I have to do all the Premier League prep for the season. Right now, I don't want to do it because Arsenal are just... What are we doing? Manchester United are looking like they want to make a push. Manchester City have got Bernardo Silva relegated to like a water boy at this point. Chelsea might take that Champions League winning squad and add, in my opinion, the best striker in the world to it. Messi wants to leave and we're just here doing nothing. Honestly, I'm sick of that club. Even Tottenham are signing players. And Harry Kane I forgot about Harry Kane. Harry Kane went AWOL. Next week's episode is going to be a full breakdown of everything. I'm going to do all the prepping all week for it. Because once I make those predictions, I don't care what's happening. I'm not going to try and step back off them. I want them documented. Because I've got some opinions for this season, but I want to flush them all out beforehand. But anyway, thank you guys for listening to the episode. Thanks for all the support, all the help, all the advice, follows, shares, comments, all that corny stuff is really appreciated. Clarence Seedorf is a baller. If you don't know, get to know. I hope football doesn't do any more madness this week, because honestly, I don't have the energy for it. But I'll see you guys next week with the season preview, and it's Premier League on next week, and life couldn't be better. But bye for now. I'll catch you guys on next week's episode. Peace.